Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to listen to A Fine Time for Healing. I am Randi Fine, your show host. Today, we are so excited to welcome Nanci Danison back for the second time on A Fine Time for Healing. Until 1994, Nanci lived the life of a successful trial lawyer with a national health law practice in a large Midwestern law firm. Then she died during an invasive radiological procedure before surgery, plunging her farther into the afterlife than previously thought survivable. And last week we talked about her latest book, Create a New Reality, Move Beyond the Law of Attraction Theory, which is going to be talked about today, but in a different way. So since the last show, just 1 month ago, Nanci has made a stunning connection between the profound knowledge gained in the afterlife and what she learned while reading my book, Close Encounters of the Worst Kind. She was given a huge amount of information in the afterlife about innate human-animal nature versus our own spiritual nature. Everything described in Close Encounters as narcissistic behavior was explained to her, and she is going to talk about what that is. We're going to put these pieces together. Okay, let's get started. Good morning, Nanci.
Good morning, Randi. I'm thrilled to be here.
So excited to have you. Okay, I'm going to let you start because I want to know what you were able to put together and how that came to you.
While I was reading your book, Close Encounters of the Worst Kind, which is one of many books on narcissism that I have read over the course of my life. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, so I've always been interested in the topic. And, of course, as an attorney representing physicians and hospitals, I spent most of my life dealing with narcissists. So I'm quite familiar with the behavior traits. But when I read your book, what occurred to me was that while I was in the afterlife, I had been given this whole, call it a download of information about human nature, and that what you describe as narcissistic personality traits and behaviors is largely what I was told is normal human-animal behavior. And that the reason we're not all like that is because we have been trained. Humans have to be trained extensively in order to be domesticated enough to fit within our societies, our current-day societies. And I would just want to make a quick comment about that, and then we can go wherever you want to go.
Okay.
If you think about it, think about a newborn baby. What would happen if a human baby had no parents, no caregiver, no training whatsoever, but was still able to grow up on its own? Let's call it a male child. He would eat with his hands whatever he could find without washing his hands. He would go to the bathroom on the floor or the ground, wherever he was, without regard to where it was, without cleaning up, without washing his hands or himself. He wouldn't bathe. He would be stealth in his efforts to try to find what it is that he needs, like going through garbage cans or stealing from a restaurant or, whatever it is. Probably wouldn't wear clothes unless it was cold. Would definitely not share with anybody. It would be him against the world, just like any other wild animal. That's a startling thought, isn't it?
It is a startling thought. So what is the other component that makes us who we are?
What I learned while I was in the light, I spent quite a bit of time, after I died, I went into the light. And while I was in the light, all kinds of things happened. But one of the things was that I kept getting these downloads of information that I called knowings, because once I got the download, I felt all-knowing on that topic. And I knew it from firsthand personal experience, even though I hadn't myself personally experienced it.
Wow.
I didn't know I died. I had no idea what had happened. I knew I was out of my body. I knew I was way out of my body. But I was still me. You know, I was still alert, alive. I didn't miss one moment of consciousness or awareness. And I realized I'm still me. I still have the same loves, the same likes and dislikes, the same personality, the same warped sense of humor. I was me without my body. And that surprised me. And I was told through these knowings that the personality that you and I think of as ourselves, the personality that we hold dear and think of as our identity, is actually the personality of the soul inside the body, not the body. And that we are souls who have chosen to inhabit human animals. We are not human. We are not our bodies. We are the spiritual component of the combined being, body and soul. And that personality that we call ourselves, our own, our identity, is largely the same as what we're used to, you know, when we're going about our daily human lives. But there are some things missing. There are things that belong only to the body, like fear, greed, self-centeredness, violence, anger, pain. Those belong just to the body, and we don't have those once we leave the body and go into the afterlife. But anyway, what these knowings that I was given show me that the differences between human personality or character traits and our own innate spiritual personality and character traits is vastly different. And what I would like to do, with your permission, Randi, is go through those traits that I was given for humans and compare them to what you described as narcissistic personality traits.
Please do. Can't wait to hear this.
Okay, I think it's pages 14 to 16 of Close Encounters of the Worst Kind has a whole list of the characteristics that psychologists use to make the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. And obviously there are a lot of people who have narcissistic personality traits but who do not have the disorder. What I was given was a list of just normal human animal traits that will show up in every human unless it's trained out of them. Okay, the first one, in the overarching character trait is what I was told was ego-centered or driven towards self-aggrandizement. That's the human trait I was given, ego-centered or driven towards self-aggrandizement. And that perfectly describes everything you say about a narcissist. You know, grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, belief that he or she is unique and special. You know, just the whole me, self-centeredness of the narcissist.
That's major. Okay.
Another one that I was given was that humans are childish and emotionally immature. And I don't know what you've seen, but I have seen in narcissists temper tantrums, just like a 3-year-old.
They are. They do. They throw tantrums, yes.
Yes, and they are manipulative. And that's emotionally immature. All children are manipulative unless you train it out of them. You know, when they want something, they think they are entitled to have it. And that feeling of entitlement is a narcissistic personality trait. And that goes along with what I was told is that humans are childish and emotionally immature. And that, in fact, it's the soul personality that matures with age of the body, not the body. Humans don't mature, just like dogs and cats. I mean, they get older, but they don't emotionally mature. I was told that humans are self-centered, and that is because of the survival instinct. You know, an animal that has one goal, and that is to make it through the day, survive, has to be self-centered. You know, they have to put their own physical needs first in order to survive the wilds of planet Earth. And, you know, maybe planet Earth isn't so wild in places anymore, but that character trait is still the bedrock of human-animal personality, self-centeredness. And parents have to train their children to be aware of other people and other people's needs. You know, little kids have to be trained to share, to not always be the center of attention, to not always have to win at their games, to take turns. Are you with me on that? Don't kids have to be trained to do all those things?
I'm listening, yeah.
Well, I don't want to take over your show, but...
No, I want to hear this. No, keep going.
Okay.
I want to hear
You've
it.
also mentioned in your book that narcissists require an excessive amount of admiration and attention, and they think they're better than everyone else, and everything they do is better than what everyone else does, and they are essentially critical of everybody but themselves. You know, nobody's good enough. Nobody
right.
lives up to their standards. And I was told in the afterlife that human nature is judgmental, and that also is part of the survival instinct. Animals in the wild have to know in a moment whether something is safe or not safe. They have to know in a moment, can they eat this or not eat this? They have to know in a moment, is somebody posing a threat to my safety or not? And those impulses, that survival instinct, is still part of every single human, and it's by scientists and medical professionals called the fight, flight, or freeze response. And we all make instantaneous judgments about everything. And a lot of those judgments are wrong, but they're necessary to an animal whose only goal is survival. And so when a narcissist is criticizing other people and, treating them like they're not as good as he is, that's the survival instinct coming out. And it has that judgmentalness is a part of every single human being. And we all do it all the time. And, no matter how hard you might try, it's very difficult not to be judgmental. I can remember before I died, sitting in the Palace Theater where I would go for a symphony or a show, and my friends and I would sit there and make snotty comments about everything everybody was wearing when they walked by us. Haven't you heard women doing that?
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah, and then, making comments about physical assets. Being critical of other people is just built into human DNA, but it can be trained out of people. A person can be trained not to be so judgmental, to keep their mind open, and to be willing to consider that someone else might actually have something better going on or something just as good going on.
Right.
And
that we don't necessarily see it. Right. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see. It's hard to put yourself in somebody else's position and see it. But I was told in the afterlife that whatever a person believes in that moment is right for them in that moment. And that's what people cling to. They cling to their own beliefs in their own present moment without really going very far afield from that. The next... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to go talk about something different, but how many more do we have?
3 or 4.
Okay, let's go. Let's talk about them. Let me hear it.
Okay, you said on page 51 that quote, narcissists are driven by one primary goal, gaining control over their victims, close quote. I was told in the afterlife that it is human nature to control others and the environment. And that is also part of the survival instinct. Animals need a comfort zone in order to feel safe. They have to have everything in their immediate environment controlled and predictable in order to feel safe. And if there are people in your immediate environment, they must be controlled for your body to feel safe. And that's the way every human body is unless it's trained out of it. Unless safety is given in other ways, by other means of reassurance.
Okay.
You also said on page 33, quote, the harder you try to hold a narcissist accountable, the more the assault on... No. The more you... I can't read my writing. The harder you try to hold a narcissist accountable, the worse the assault on you will be, close quote.
Yes.
And I was told in the afterlife that all humans, by nature, refuse to accept responsibility for their own thoughts and deeds.
Oh, my gosh.
You can't hold them accountable. And that's just, I don't know why. I wasn't given an explanation for that. That's just the way animals are. And humans are not the only animals like that. Cats and dogs, you can't hold a cat responsible for, or a dog responsible for peeing on your carpet or for clawing something in your house. That's just their nature. Well, it's just human nature to refuse to accept responsibility. That has to be trained into small children. And then the last one is, you say that narcissists are hypersensitive to criticism or disrespect. And I was told in the afterlife that human animals are anxious about their place in the hierarchy and are very competitive. And that, too, is part of the survival instinct. If you can get yourself into a position of top dog, you've got a better chance of surviving than the rest of the herd. And so humans compete to be top dog in whatever it is they're doing. And there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with not being top dog and not knowing whether you're going to, be able to successfully compete and to get what you want through your own efforts and through your own manipulation and whatever else it is you're going to use.
Oh, this is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing, because so many people say to me, where do these people come from? Some people call them demonic, I don't think that they are human in the regard that we think of a human person, not in the regard that you're talking about with the human animal, but what we think as the human with the soul, the whole package. I don't think they're human. And that's what I guess what I'm saying is I don't think they have a soul. And that would be what you're saying.
No, actually, I'm not saying they don't have souls. I'm just what I think has happened is that there are many, many people who don't get adequate training as a child. Either they don't get the training or it doesn't take. Because every child starts out acting just like, this whole list of characteristics that we've been discussing until they're trained out of it. And, there are parents who are very successful at doing that. There are children who are very willing to be trained. And then there are those who are not.
Okay.
And there are some things we get trained in very well and other things not so well. Most people will eat using utensils, but there are those who prefer finger food, like an animal. There's a whole wide range. But I don't think you can say somebody doesn't have a soul just because they act like a narcissist. All I'm saying is that that's normal human-animal behavior, that they haven't been trained to avoid.
It hasn't trained out of them. That's incredible. Thanks for clarifying that. So what you said really answers the next question I had, which is how children in a family can respond differently. And often in these families where children come from narcissistic abuse, no one in the family is trained. However, maybe one person will become a narcissist, one child, and the others may become codependent or have other issues. So I wonder where those children who do not become narcissists are getting this information, the training.
Either they're getting the training on their own, like some children will pick up behaviors, watching TV, reading from their friends.
Okay.
They want to emulate people that they admire. So they teach themselves, they train themselves. But the other thing that we have to keep in mind, Randi, is that the soul inside is the major personality. And every child's going to be different because every child has a different soul inside.
Okay.
And that's the major personality. And maybe the soul personality is the type that maybe they've incarnated into humans many, many times, and they're used to it. They're used to the fact that you've got to be trained, and they're used to the fact that, there are certain behaviors you've got to learn in order to get along. And so they readily adapt to the training. Maybe the personality, the soul inside another child is new to incarnation, or maybe they're just a rebellious personality, the spiritually rebellious personality, and they just say, no, not me, I'm not going to do it.
So really what we're saying is it's a combination of nature versus nurture. That's the old argument, because the nature would be the human animal, correct? So, am I right in saying this? Right.
Yes.
And then the nurture would be the training.
Right.
So the old argument, which one is it? What you're saying is that's exactly what it is. It's nature versus nurture, which clarifies a lot for us. I've been asked this question that I just asked you. How can one child be different? I always use the word personality, but, it's the personality of the soul as you're explaining. I didn't really explain it that way or know it to be that way, but it's the personality that changes who they are. If they both have the same genetic predisposition or whatever it is, it's the personality, and now I know the soul. Now I know it's the soul.
And the other big factor that comes in, Randi, is what I've written about in my book, Create a New Reality. We souls have the spiritual ability to literally manufacture the physical world that we see, the physical experiences that we have. And what we do is that's called manifesting. We manifest into physical reality what we truly and deeply believe about ourselves, about life, and about our place in the world. The problem is we start creating beliefs from infancy, even inside the womb. We can hear something and make it a rule in our own minds, or make it a belief, or make it a fact, just from hearing it once, without even having any idea whether what we're making a rule out of is true, or whether something that we believe, if we had the ability to discuss it with somebody, we could find out that we just didn't understand what was going on. And a lot of harm is done by these early childhood beliefs that it's impossible for a parent to know, a child's picking up. But let's say a child will hear in the womb, hear his parents making wisecracks about, whether they want the child or not. And the wife will say, well, you're the one that wanted this baby, not me. And, they're just being smart alecky with each other and, teasing. But the baby hears it and thinks, I'm not wanted, and spends the whole rest of his or her life manufacturing event after event, experience after experience that proves they weren't wanted by their parents. Or at least that's the way they interpret it. If we can find those hidden, erroneous beliefs and correct them, most of the time all I have to do is bring it up to the light of day. I mean, if you told that child, that they formed a belief based on, or the child figured out, the adult figured out that, as a child they heard their parents joking about, not wanting this baby. If you could just point those facts out to the person as an adult, they go, well, that's crazy. Why would I believe that? Mm. And then they could drop the belief and then start unconsciously manifesting a far, far better life where they feel loved.
Wow. Now, so what I refer to as the false self is a manifestation, correct?
When I use manifestation, I mean a physical object.
Okay.
The universe is a manifestation. Our bodies are manifestations. Cars are manifestations.
Okay.
But there are lots of other meanings for the word. That's the word I was given in the afterlife for this power to create physical reality.
Okay. So, but what the narcissist does is create a new reality. That's exactly what they do. They
Yes.
create a reality that's not based on anything real. It's based on fantasy. It's based on what they want and what they think they need. So,
Yes.
So in a sense, they are. It's a different kind of manifestation, I guess. Maybe it's a different word. Maybe it's a different word. I don't know.
No, I think you've got it right. That narcissists manifest experiences and opportunities to match their belief that they are the center of the universe, that they have no responsibility for anything they do, and that everybody should kowtow to them and worship them.
Yes.
And that's a human animal belief that we all start out with. We can't fault them for having that. We don't have to like it or put up with it, but we can't fault them for having it.
We can't fault them for being human animals. But I like
we
that.
We can't fault them for being human animals. But,
right.
It's like one of my law partners said to me at one point in time, before I died, I used to blame a lot of my personality defects on my parents. Hey, it's their fault I grew up like this, And so one time I was saying something like that to my law partner, and she said, okay, your parents had you for the first 18 years of your life. What have you done with yourself for the next 18? And that's when it hit me. Oh, yeah, we can retrain ourselves. We don't have to just stick to what we learned as children.
Exactly. Although there is a sort of paralysis that happens to us when, it's very hard for us to figure it out. And until we do figure it out, we can't really change it. So if a child has been abused this way, often they don't know that they have been. And I can speak for myself. I was in my 40s when I realized that I had been emotionally abused for my whole life. But it shocked me. I couldn't see it. And this is what I experience with everyone I counsel is they have a hard time believing it and seeing it. But once they can, then they can move forward with the quote-unquote retraining.
Yes, and I think what you do, Randi, that's so incredibly valuable is you help them find these erroneous beliefs. And the erroneous belief is that what they experienced in their home as a child is normal.
Yes.
That abuse is normal. And
yes.
once you can point out to them that it's not, the healing can begin.
That's true. Often, so what I say to people who say, well, I had a great childhood. So if someone comes to me and they are having relationship problems with the narcissist. Not always, but often I can trace that back to the childhood. So I'll always say, what was your childhood like? It's usually coming from the childhood, but they'll say to me, some will say to me, well, I have a perfectly healthy, normal childhood. And I say, tell me about it. And as they begin talking, it's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I didn't. And that's it's a huge wake-up call. And it's really my job to wake people up to what they're not seeing. That's what I do.
Yes, and it's just habit that, we continue to believe these things as adults. Who spends the time sitting around thinking about, all the things they thought as a child and whether they're true or not? Nobody does that unless they're causing a problem.
Exactly. So why do you think this is so prevalent? Do you think it's more prevalent now than it ever was, or that we're more aware of it now?
I don't know if it actually is more prevalent or whether we're more aware of it or both. But my observation, and this is from living in Nanci's body, is that our society has moved farther and farther into accepting and being okay with narcissistic behaviors. Things that, when I was a kid, nobody could get away with are now common. Like just one simple example was, when I was a kid, you wouldn't be caught dead showing your private parts in public. People do it all the time now. I mean, they sext naked pictures of each other to each other.
Yes,
they show
do.
up on TV half naked. I mean, it's just that's a self-centered, hey, look at me, I'm the greatest thing in the world, narcissistic behavior that is now commonplace. And people don't think of it that way, but that's what it is.
Right. And that's not necessarily the personality disorder. That's the way society is now.
Yes.
So it's become okay.
Yes. Humans are herd animals. If the alphas in the herd do something, everybody else feels like they can do it too. And so you have, preteens out there half naked because Beyonce is.
So for those of us that don't fall into this pattern, do you think that it's just our soul and, like you said before, maybe experience of lifetimes, having incarnated lifetimes, that we've learned these, other behaviors? We know how to distinguish between good and bad, or morality versus, immorality. How do some of us rise above this?
I think it's a combination of things. The things that you mentioned, innate spiritual personality, training, self-training, the experience in incarnating, just the experiences that we've had, childhood beliefs. I mean, just so much goes into it. And, there is no one out there who is free of narcissistic behaviors.
Right.
And most of them are fairly harmless. But
and it's healthy to have a mild amount of narcissism. A mild amount. As I say in the book, we start off as babies with extreme narcissism. And then as we get older, that's supposed to die down. But, we want to think of ourselves as being very special. That's important to us in this life, that we know that we're special in this world. So, yes, there is some narcissism.
And I think there also, when you have more incarnations under your belt, so to speak, it's easier for you to be able to show your true spiritual personality through the behaviors of your host body. And so that's where you're seeing more of the unconditional love and the generosity and the, the pro bono work of, volunteers and charities and, people who are generous and loving and giving. That's our spiritual nature. And some people are able to act that spiritual nature out through their bodies. But some of the bodies that we choose to inhabit are just, they're hard to guard. I mean, they're just hard to train. They're hard to control. They're just a challenge. And so I don't think we can ever look at somebody and try to guess, why they end up the way they are.
Right.
There's no way to know.
Right. So we're not talking about human animals as being cookie cutters. We're talking about them as being unique animals with a unique personality, should we say, that they have, or a unique drive. What makes them different from each other, these human animals?
I was told that humans all have the same character traits, the same character and personality traits.
So they are like cookie cutter, right?
They are like cookie cutter. They're just like every dog is a dog and every cat is a cat. Every human is a human. I mean, they just have an innate, evolved, built-in set of personality and character traits. What makes us all behave differently is that we all have varying degrees of success in showing our true spiritual personality through the behavior of our host bodies.
Wow, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
And that, this idea that we're all special and unique, that is true. I was told in the afterlife that when Source created us to be these souls, everyone was, I'll say handcrafted, although Source doesn't have any hands, was specifically designed to be a unique personality. There are no two identical souls. So we are unique. We are special. And more than that, I was told we are God. We are Source. We are our Creator. We are parts of our Creator's consciousness, self-awareness. So we have every reason to be proud of ourselves and to be, to consider ourselves to be unique and special and wonderful, because we are. The thing is,
we are.
It's not good manners to lord it over other people.
Right, no.
Because they're just as unique and special as you are.
Right. We're supposed to learn not to do that. We're supposed to learn humility in this life.
Yes.
So one more question that I have is, so what do we take with us when we leave our animal bodies? Our animal bodies die, and the essence of who we truly are leaves. Because if we've had problems, or if we suffer from depression, or if we have illnesses, depression, and I guess I'm talking about mental illnesses because that's an illness of the mind. Do we leave that behind to the physical mind?
Yes.
Or do we take that with us?
No, it's all gone. I not only personally experienced this, but I was given a download of knowings about, what survives the death of the animal. And what is gone when we're in the afterlife is the pain, the suffering, the guilt, the hopelessness, the feeling that we're not loved, the lack of acceptance, the physical, mental, emotional problems. They're all gone.
That's great news for a lot of people.
Well, I thought so too when I was in the light, but what happened was strange. I was pain-free for the first time in the 43 years that I've been living as Nanci, and I missed the pain. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to be in pain anymore because I was in wherever it was I was in, and I wasn't going back to human life. At least that's what I thought then. And I missed the pain because pain is an awareness of physical life that's unique to physical life. You can't have it in the afterlife. And it's a way of feeling alive that we don't have in spiritual life. And I miss chocolate, and I miss eating, because those are all things that are wonderful about physical life that we can't have when we're in the afterlife.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So, we're almost out of time. I'm so grateful that you came back to share this information with us, because you have answered the main question for so many of us who were saying, who are these people? Now we can say they're just human animals, undomesticated human animals.
Yes, and I think that, a lot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a lot of us are going to be tempted to say, oh, good, I'll just retrain them. You can't do it without their acknowledgement and agreement and cooperation, and they're not going to cooperate.
Right. If they couldn't be trained in childhood, they're not going to be trained
They're not
now.
going to be trained now. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up, because, that could cross some people's minds who just don't want to accept it.
That crosses my mind all the time.
No, we cannot train these people. We need to let them go.
Yes.
That's all we can do,
just
is let
avoid
them go.
Them.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Get them out of our life and let them go. So anyway, well, thanks for coming back. Thanks for reading my book and interpreting it in an entirely new way. So that is a gift to me, such a gift I can't even explain. I can't even, I don't even know how to say that or thank you for that. But I'm sure that the information that you were given was meant to be given to me as well, and to others. So I thank Source, God, Spirit. I thank you. And it's been wonderful talking to you.
And I thank you, Randi. You are a true gift to this world, and I hope many, many, many people are able to take advantage of your help.
Oh, I appreciate that. Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be in touch. So just see ya. I'm not going to say goodbye.
Okay, thanks, Randi.
I'll see you sometime, okay?
Definitely in the afterlife. Okay. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Okay, bye-bye. So we are out of time today. But I do wish you serenity and joy always. Goodbye.